Hey everyone, I'm John Meldrum, and you're listening to the Brave Dad Now podcast, the show dedicated to help inspire and uplift men and dads around the world to be their best selves. Today is episode 17 titled Dating After Divorce. Am I ready? A discussion with Terri Rose. So joining me today, Terri Rose is the owner of Blissify Your Life, and she is a love and lifestyle coach. So Terri, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And, go ahead, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do.
Well, I'm Terri Rose. I'm a love and lifestyle coach with Blissify Your Life, and I predominantly support those people in relationships and through separation, divorce, and empty nesting.
Excellent. And I was fortunate enough to meet Terri at a networking group, and I heard a little bit about what she did, and it piqued my interest, and we got to talking, and we came to this awesome conclusion that, like, hey, let's get together and come be on my podcast. So Terri was very gracious and listened to some prior episodes, and now she has joined us today, so we're very excited to have her here and learn a little bit about relationships from a professional. So let's dive a little bit deeper into kind of your background. What got you into relationship coaching and helping people? What was kind of the inspiration for that?
Yeah, John, all my life I've been told, even since my teens, God, I can't believe I'm telling you this. I've never told anybody this before. And I always knew that I wanted to help people. But at that time, my dad had said, hey, what do you want to do with your life when you grow up and off to college? And I said, well, I want to help people. And he's like, nah, you'll just listen to people's problems all day. You got to head for business. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I'll go do business. So I got a degree from college and did business. And here I am, 30 years later and wanting to still help people. And now I'm just at a time in my life where I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit too in me, and it's just the right timing and alignment. It's what I often will always say. It's always about timing and alignment, where I can really kick it off and give it some real roots and start serving the hearts of people. And where my passion comes from, particularly with relationship separation, divorce, and empty nesting, is because it's a niche in an area where there's a lot of support financially and a lot legally for that, but there's not a lot that's really holding the emotional piece to that, where we're encouraging, people in really broken transition times of their life to see hope and to see the future and to really know that there's going to come a point where you're going to get out of this and be able to move ahead again and move forward and stop living in that past. And it's my commitment to really get there in the early stages to help people see this is not a death sentence. This becomes an opportunity for a new beginning and a re-emergence or new emergence of who you are in a time of self-discovery and a reawakening. And it's just a passion of mine to be a part of. And particularly what attracted me to yours is the single dad piece. Dads, men, single fathers are out there doing it just like women, but society hasn't embraced as much for an opportunity for men to have an outlet and a place to bring their emotional pain, because they hurt through the process just like we do, in some different ways, but still just as deep and just as difficult. And so it's my passion to really get out there as a female to give some female perspective for the men as they're moving through this transition too, because it's a challenging one.
Yeah, and I absolutely totally agree. That was definitely the thing that I noticed when I first was going through my divorce, was that there weren't a lot of resources out there for men. There weren't a lot of support groups. Navigating that emotional storm was just so difficult, and I think we live in a culture where men and masculinity is defined as, toughen up and rub some dirt on it and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just deal with it. And that's just not a healthy way of dealing with it.
Because what happens is it just causes you to stuff it down, and you've got no place to take it. And so one of the things I provide is a safe environment where men can come to my meetup or, in one-on-one coaching with me, and they can close that door and they can have a safe, sacred space where they can let out the tears and feel the emotions and know that when they step back out into the world, they got cleansed a little bit, they got to release a little bit, and they got to let go, and they got to feel, and they got to experience, and not be in that controlled place of constantly pushing it down. They got to let it out and let it come to the surface. And that's what's necessary to heal and really emerge out of this kind of experience healthy. You've got to release it. And family and friends are a great support as part of your support network. But you really need somebody that's going to be unbiased and really give you that focus moving forward and give you some tangible tools and tips and activities that keep you moving forward, so you don't go down into that abyss that can happen, and then you stay there too long and it's a downward spiral.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I like how you use the word unbiased, because I think that with traumatic events, particularly divorce, that a lot of times people pick sides, and then it kind of becomes this contest, like, well, he did this or she did that, or they said this or that or whatever. But the bottom line is, you got to get back to being healthy. You got to take care of yourself, take care of your kids. You still have to live your life, and it doesn't do any good to pit people against one another and take sides. So I like that. What has kind of been your experience with working with people thus far, or what can people expect when they come to see you?
Well, when they come to see me, the best candidate to work with me is somebody who's ready to move forward. If you're still really heavily beaten down and really stuck, and I can lift you out of that as long as you're open to coming. But if you really are feeling that need to stay there, that might be better suited for like a trained psychologist or a therapist. But when you're really ready to take some of your personal power inside of yourself and really use it to catapult yourself and start taking some actions and trying new things and adventuring out there, then we're going to get to work, and we're going to do it where I'm going to meet you where you're at and whatever it is that you're struggling with, because it depends on where they're coming to me from. They may be coming to me from, maybe it's a woman who's been left after 20 something years of marriage by a man who left him for a younger woman. That's a really difficult thing to start from. So we're going to start working on her self-worth and her self-esteem, and knowing that she's still lovable and beautiful and amazing, and that experience really had nothing to do with her. But it's going to take a while, because she's going to internalize it to mean it had something to do with her. So we're going to do some work around that. Another one might be somebody who's contemplating, divorce and hasn't gone there yet. So that's going to be a different kind of discussion and coaching, right? From whether it's the right decision and those kinds of things. I have another client, let's say, who's already moved past it and is 2 years almost post-divorce. Well, that's a whole different stage you're in when you're 2 years past divorce, because you're finally able to start letting go of living so much in the attachment still emotionally to the person, and being able to see there's a future for you, and starting to get excited about creating that for yourself. So it really depends on where the person's at in the process, the kind of coaching that is really needed.
Okay, got it. So the most success that you have seen are people who have some degree of willingness to change.
Yeah, or to say, I just don't want to feel this way anymore, because I'm ideal to get you centered on how do you want to feel?
Yeah. What
are your desired feelings you want to feel? And then we're going to start focusing on aligning everything in your life and the decisions you make around that feeling, because when you do that, then you're more empowered, and then the opportunities start coming that'll align by that intention that you're setting. Yeah. And to get in touch with defining how you want to feel is critical, because then you'll choose the right people to date. You'll choose, the right job for yourself, and maybe it's a career change time. You'll make the right decisions in self-care. You'll hang out around more positive people, and you'll look at the ones that are in your life, if they're helping support you or they're building you down, or everything starts aligning when you get centered on that.
Yeah. So let's say somebody's still in that dark place. What's something they can do to kind of get out of that and get ready to transition and work with you? What would some advice you would give to somebody?
In the dark place, call me.
Call me.
Because I'm pretty confident I'm going to love you up so much so you'll get out of the dark place.
Got it.
Because my commitment is to not hold you in that space. And I do have that happening. I mean, we're really seeing, it's a passion of mine to really get our society talking about this, because it's an epidemic. And a growing epidemic is, you'll hear the term now, gray divorce, where it's people 50 and over that are divorcing now. And it's going to become a national epidemic because these people that are 50 and older may have stayed together for the children. And they're now, those children are 24 and off on their own, and these people have been married 30-something years. Yeah. And now they're coming into the age where one of the spouses is off the other's health care, and they're living alone and they're isolated, and maybe they didn't have a career that whole time in that marriage. And so now they don't have health coverage, they're in apartments, they're isolated. And if they were left for somebody else, they have those abandonment issues, what's wrong with me issues. And now their health could deteriorate, and now they don't have health coverage. So that's another issue, and it can go really snowballs into a very deep, dark abyss if you don't get somebody like me immediately. And I have had an experience like that, and it breaks my heart to see that this trend is showing up in my meetups, and that's showing up in my speaking engagements and my workshops and stuff, and it is happening out there. So the best advice is self-care. You know, even if you can only carve 15 minutes a day for yourself, it's important to do that. And then also to call on somebody who's not only the family that's supporting you because they have their own life, but a coach like me who's there on call to you when you're in that really dark time. And I'll help pull you out of it.
Yeah, and going back to what we were saying earlier, I just love the fact that you are a third-party, unbiased, candidate who's going to be the cheerleader to help you out, and I love that. I think
imagine if you had that to call.
Yeah, exactly. And there are so many times where you just go through that emotional roller coaster up and down, or like, hey, can I really be happy again? Can I really get through this? And it would have been so nice to have somebody like you to be like, Terri Rose, I need help.
Yep, I'm having one of those days.
Yep.
I'm going to come over and show up, and we're going to go for a walk, and we're going to talk about it, because getting your body moving and getting you outside and feeling the sun or the rain, whatever the condition is, and you're walking and you're not making eye contact, you're going to open up to those painful things, and you're going to have a safe place to cry it out. So I'm with you when you're feeling it. And that's critical. It's critical to release it. It's very powerful. And the other thing that, we forget about that I'm also reminded of is sometimes when you go through these divorces and you have these family and friends that, they can love you through as much as they can, doing their best, being biased. But some of these people, they don't only lose their families and their spouses, but they are losing the family members because the in-laws reject them, or their kids reject them for rejecting their dad or their mom. The friends choose sides, and so you can end up losing friends. You end up losing in-laws. You end up losing your church community. You end up losing. There's so much loss for some that the grief just gets too unbearable.
And you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what happened to me. I didn't just lose my wife. I lost my wife, my relationship with my kids. I lost her family, which was my family, because all my family live in another state. I lost my church community. I lost, my job eventually, and those friends, and that reputation, and just everything. It was gone in an instant. So it was really sad. But let's go ahead now and let's transition. I want to talk about a little bit about dating after divorce.
That's always a gray area.
Yeah. And
how do you know when you're ready?
How do you know when you're ready? I really want to tackle that issue. And I'm kind of debating in my mind, should I tell my story and then you give some feedback on that, or do you want to give your thoughts on that? Or I think maybe I should tell my story.
Let's tell your story, because you're fresh and new, and then I'll chime in a little bit on my experience when I was doing that.
So, all right. So, recently I decided to kind of put myself out there and start dating again. And
where are you in your process?
As like emotionally, where am I?
Or just how much timeline are you out?
Oh, timeline wise. So I've been separated from my ex-wife for 1.5 years, and then we've been officially divorced for 7 months. And so I kind of, one of the biggest challenges that you deal with in divorce is loneliness, and it's crushing because you come home to an empty home or apartment and your spouse isn't there and your kids aren't there, and you can hear the air conditioning going, and you're like, wow, my life is really sad and lonely. And it's hard you have to fight that constantly and tell yourself, no, my life is great, and go hang out with friends and fill your life with things. Anyway, so to kind of battle that loneliness, I was thinking, I need to get out there and start meeting women again and start dating. And so because it's 2018, how do you date? You download apps. So dating at this point in my life is very different than when I dated back in college, because I went to BYU, Idaho, and there were so many girls there. I mean, it was just everywhere you looked, there was just girls, and it was kind of like a buffet. I'm like, oh, I like you, I like you, I like you. No, not you. And as a guy, the numbers are in your favor. There's overwhelmingly more women than men, and so you get to kind of, like I said, it's like a buffet. That sounds really bad, but
my son has a friend who just went there for a year and came back and said the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Said, I'm going into the military. I want to.
Yeah, so I actually did pretty. I got through my first 3 years of college, and I didn't start exclusively dating my ex-wife until my senior year. So now fast forward, I'm like so overwhelmed with the scarcity and the difference of dating, where it's boiled down to swiping left and right and up and down, and you make snap judgments of people based on their photo.
An image,
and it makes things very superficial, and it's all about, are you hot or not? And this is gonna sound really vain, but that's a big reason why I go to the gym and why I take care of myself and try to look as good as possible, because I know that if I don't, women aren't gonna give me the time of day. And I don't blame them, because if I was kind of ugly looking or whatever, I wouldn't want to date me either. So I think whether it's in person or on an app, you should take the time to really take care of yourself. Look the best for you. Not everybody can be Chris Hemsworth or whatever, but be attractive in your own sphere of influence. So anyway, I downloaded this app, and I chatted with a couple of girls, and then this one girl was pretty bold, and she asked me out on the date, and I was kind of like, whoa, okay, she's a go-getter,
Did you like that?
No, I hated it. I didn't like that at all, because I wanted to date and meet up on my terms, because so much of my divorce and my marriage were things were out of my control, and so now I'm like this. I don't know if control freak is the right word, but I want to, my next relationship, I want the control back in my life, where I can date and love and be loved in a controlled way. And I don't want that to sound like narcissistic or controlling, but kind of the dynamic in my previous relationship, it was the happy wife, happy life mentality. Oh yes, dear, yes, honey, whatever you want. I just would constantly roll over, and she would make the decisions. Well, that's very emasculating, and that's what I realized. It was I was in an imbalanced relationship where I was not viewed and treated as an equal partner. So this time around, I'm like, no, I'm going to be the man, and I'm gonna provide, and I'm going to make decisions and take care of things and get things done and be handy and be a man or whatever. And so when she asked me out, I was like, that just flew right into the face of all of that. But I'm okay. I was like, it's 2018, things are more progressive, and it's not the end of the world if a woman asks you out on a date. In fact, you should be flattered and grateful. So I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So I kind of one-upped her and said, okay, how about tomorrow? And I just kind of like put her hand to the fire and just kind of see if she was like really serious about it, or if she would kind of chicken out. So she did, and we went on a date, and it was really pleasant. She was a vegan, I'm lactose intolerant, so we went to go get sushi, because that's about all you could eat with our diets. And she was very pleasant and good conversation. We had a lot of similar interests, but unfortunately, I just had so much negativity and pain from the divorce that all I could do was just compare her to my ex-wife, or it was a painful reminder that I once had this beautiful, loving relationship, and that's now gone. Mm-hmm. It kind of forced me to face that feeling again.
And you felt that pain again.
I felt the pain again.
Of the loss.
Of the loss.
Yes.
And then I didn't want to compliment her. I didn't want to tell her nice things. I didn't want to say, "Oh, you look nice today," or "That's a nice jacket," or "You're really funny," because I didn't want to make myself vulnerable, and that wall was still there because I was scared that if I were to open myself up to her, what if she rejected me? That fear of rejection. I've already been rejected in the deepest, most painful way possible. My own wife left me. So having someone who I barely know reject me, I couldn't bear that. So I just I wasn't rude, but it wasn't overly nice. I was just kind of pleasant, So that was kind of the date. And then we went and flew some drones, and and then we got to the door and things were kind of awkward. I'm like, do I go in for a kiss or what, or a hug? And I just gave her a hug and said thank you. It was a great date, and I'll see you later. And that's kind of where that ended. So
yeah, and see, that's the amazing thing about when you ask, well, when am I going to be ready to date? You really don't know until you do it.
Right.
And it's all part of the healing process. We all need companionship, and we want to feel lovable and desired and wanted by somebody. So there comes a point where you'll take that risk and put yourself out there. But as you found in yourself, you had feelings in yourself that showed you how unready you still are.
Totally.
But yet you got to go out swinging, and you got to try. And I venture to say that even if she was the right one, you still wouldn't be ready for it.
Right.
Because and every time you go out, and you will continue to go out, you'll find you'll go out, maybe take another break again and try again, as I say, swing the bat again.
Yeah.
And each time you do, you're going to learn a little bit more and a little bit more about yourself, about what you don't want, what you do want, and those periods that will well up in you as they start subsiding, and you start feeling in yourself an attraction to somebody else. That's when you'll be ready to be able to allow that vulnerability to open a bit. And then they can become a really great resource and friend for you in your healing process as you open up. And then they can reflect to you, not rejecting you. They can reflect hearing your story and your flaws and all those different things that come about from your story of what caused your divorce. And they grow you in strength, even though most likely the numbers game, it may most likely and statistically not be in your favor, is going to work out. So it's what I call they're the right person and for the right reason for that season in your healing process.
I like that.
And like in my experience, post divorce, I took a while to date, and then I was really naive, and I went on Craigslist because I didn't know about anything else. That's how naive I was. But I made some really, really great guys on there who are still my friends today. And they literally loved me through and were friends helping me through my divorce process that I would not have made it through without them. And each one of them had a reason for a season. Like the very first one I dated was only for about 4 months, but I started dating him in September. And I had just moved out on my own that January in 2010. But he was the guy that got me through my very first holidays without my children.
Oh.
Thanksgiving and Christmas. Because we had to split Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. And that year, Thanksgiving, I didn't have them. And it was my first year without having my family Thanksgiving. And it was brutal. But he was just the guy to be there loving me through that day and that other time at Christmas. Like when kids left that morning, Christmas Day, he was down the street parked waiting for me to give him the text. And he showed up at my door with the most beautiful bouquet of flowers, and he held me all day long. And then we ended up breaking up just before New Year's Eve. We had a 4-month run, but Phil is forever a spiritual, loving friend and man in my life that will never leave my life, because he was there in that time. I had another guy I dated, well, it wasn't a date. We just said, hey, this isn't going to happen, but if you want to be friends, it's cool. And he was like, well, I'd rather have you in my life than not have you at all. And we stayed friends for good several years, and he was somebody I could call, and you'll be able to relate to this, and you going through this will have them. 2 a.m, 3 a.m, wake ups, crying your eyes out, going, I can't do this. how am I going to do this? This hurts too much. How am I going to be able to provide and love and all these things that gets overwhelming? Well, I had somebody to call when I had that moment, and he was that guy, Joe. And I couldn't have gotten through my divorce without Joe, because I could call him at 2 a.m, 3 a.m, 4 a.m, it didn't matter. He answered that phone and he would tell me, you're going to be okay. You're going to get through this. You're stronger than you know. And you need those kinds of people. So, and then I did go through some relationships where in my dating, I dated someone who was an alcoholic. And I learned, I don't ever want to do that again. That was for a year. I dated somebody who got mean and got physically abusive with me one time. And I was strong enough to get out of that. There's a lot of people who don't get out of those and they stay. Because what happens, and you'll know, when we go through this process, your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-love, your self-confidence just goes down the drain.
Absolutely.
And you have to rebuild it from the ground back up. So that's why in my coaching I say it's a journey back to self-love and the self-acceptance and that self-confidence again, because when you get there, you'll make better choices for yourself. So you won't choose to date somebody who's abusive to you. You won't choose to date someone who's an alcoholic because, you're wanting to move on and live a thriving life, and that's somebody who's got to deal with some stuff in their own life. Not something I want to take on, right? And you start loving yourself enough that even being alone is better than being with the wrong person. So you're in the beginning journeys of that, and experiencing that for yourself is huge in showing you where your healing process is and where you're at. And I always say it typically takes at least a good 2 years before you're really emotionally out of that fog and out of that hurt, because also in this stage, you're also learning how to unravel and undo a past relationship. So you're not even available and free, and nor is it fair to the person you're dating. You're not emotionally available because you're still learning how to make that emotional relationship you had with your ex-spouse to a business relationship. Mm-hmm. And that takes time. It really does. And until you get there, you've got like one foot in your past when you're trying to move forward, right?
Yeah, I like the imagery on that. Going back to this kind of business relationship, quick tangent. What I have found is the more that I eat humble pie and just take what I want and just put it to the side and just play nice, the better things are. Because there are still some things that my ex-spouse does that I'm just like, why are you doing this, and like, for example, just recently my kids were starting their first day of school, and I wanted to go drive them to school and take pictures with them, 20 minutes tops. Well, that turned into a big argument, and I don't want you there, and you're not welcome at my house, and all these things. And I ended up just kind of saying, all right, whatever, let's just whatever you want. And it wasn't so much that I rolled over, but I realized that in the grand scheme of things, to fight over, this was just, it was insignificant. Why go to war over it? And so what I decided to do was to be painfully nice to her. Like that phrase, kill you with kindness. And it was interesting because I started using please and thank you for letting me take the kids, and it was interesting because in the past few weeks her text messages have changed. She actually texts me back, for one thing, and number two, her language, I actually got a little apology out of her, like a little tiny one. That was like a small little victory.
And that's huge.
Yeah,
that's so huge, because you see, by changing you, it changes her. It's what I talk about, going on that higher road. And I know you've already covered some forgiveness in some of your podcasts. Yeah. And when you can separate the person from their pain and see that the things they do is because of their pain, it's not the person. Mm-hmm. It makes it easier for you to be able to go and say, okay, this isn't her keeping me from my kids on the first day of school. It's her feeling the need to have some sense of control because I've hurt her, and it's her pain. Yeah.
And it's hard. It takes a lot to take your pain, put it to the side, humanize the other person, and say, wow, you know what? They're hurting through this divorce too. and to kind of have a servant's heart and say, how can I help them? How can I make this easier on them? And that takes a lot of forgiveness and emotional intelligence and maturity, and it's hard.
Reaching way deep.
Yeah, and that's you're reaching really deep, and it really tests what you're made out of.
Totally.
You know. And luckily, growing up, I've always been taught to treat people with respect and kindness, and to take care of women and treat them like queens and whatnot. And so I've held on to those ideas into my adult years. And so I've chosen, like I said, to forgive her and just do everything that I can so that she's healthy and happy, so that she has a good relationship with the kids. Because if I make her life hard, then she's going to be miserable, and then she's going to make the life miserable to the kids.
Yeah.
Exactly. She's going to be unhappy. So by loving her or by respecting her, I'm also loving and respecting my kids. Mm-hmm. And so it all kind of what goes around comes around.
And that's really great, John, that you see that, because not all people in this game do that.
Yeah.
They get caught up in just wanting to hurt the other spouse, and they don't see at the end of the day the people that get hurt the most are the children, because we have the adult maturity to be able to maneuver and manage our feelings, but the children are the ones that get caught in the middle in that crossfire. So it takes somebody to take that higher road to just, like you just did with that example, to just make it easier. And I'm really glad to hear that she's coming back with it just softens a little bit more, right? And it's kind of something that I do, like if you push your fist against my fist really hard, push, we're just like this all the time, right? Okay, now I want you to push with your fist again, as hard as you can. There's no resistance when somebody gives, right? Yeah. So the goal is to finding that where there just isn't resistance, and sometimes that does mean you're giving up a whole lot of what you think you need or that you want to have for yourself. Yeah. But it really comes down to this controlling thing, you know, so.
In a really weird way, I feel like in order to win her back, I have to let her go. And it's like this really hard thing because, you know, I'm very honest, I still love her. I still have feelings for her. But, you know, her heart is hurt. It's not, she doesn't want to be with me anymore. And I have to accept that and just let her go and just let her heal, let her live her life. If things work out, great. And we get back together, that would be awesome. But if not, then I have to accept that and respect that decision and then move on, find my own happiness.
Right. And so like you did with your date, you saw how that felt for you, you know. But for those of you watching too who might be further along in the process, might be going out on dates and really enjoying it now and having a lot of good times, having your freedom, right?
Yeah.
So you know, there's also that process too. Yeah. And then you're weeding through and you're finding out more and more about yourself. And then all of a sudden you see your ex again and they're looking really hot.
Yeah.
Oh, you're thrown right back into it again, right?
That's another reason I work out.
So the dating thing is definitely a journey, you know, and eventually you find yourself down the road where you are able to open your hearts back up and take that risk with somebody. And for some, they find that second time sweeter story and it's happened sooner than later and they could never be happier. And for others, it takes a while. But when you're really raw and new in it, I find it typically takes around 2 years before you really get your footing grounded again, where you can offer your heart to somebody and really invest some energy into somebody else.
Yeah. You know, and I hope, that's my hope and prayer is that, you know, maybe we'll get that sweeter second story, you know, because we have both been through so much that it's also made us grow as individuals. And so coming back into that relationship, we're like, okay, well, we don't want that. We don't want to go down that path because we know where that path goes. So what can we do to make this work now? And so that's, you know, if you know, I'm kind of curious out there, if anybody out there has, after gone through a divorce or a breakup, has gotten back together, what was it like, you know? And so shoot me an email, and maybe that's something we can talk about. Maybe we can get you on my podcast, and that'd be a really fun topic to kind of play around with, is the marriage 2.0.
Yeah, the ones who went down that road but pulled it back together.
Yeah, that'd be really good. So, well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. And Terri Rose, is there any other thoughts that you have that you want to share with people about getting back into dating, when to know that's right, or just maybe just some advice in general?
Really, I really come from the point of just taking this time for yourself. It's so key and so important. If you stuff that and put that off, it's just going to come out and manifest later in other ways. So it's just to be kind and gentle to yourself. Get a coach, get a good support system, get out there with friends, doing things you really enjoy doing that bring you joy. So you're in the feeling space of joy. And when you're in that space, you're going to feel better. And when you feel better, you're going to be able to manage experiences with your ex better. And you're going to be better with your children. You're going to be better in your job. And through that, you may attract somebody just because your energy is a different energy level that comes into your life like a pleasant surprise. So it all just really centers on just taking really good care of yourself and trusting in the process and getting lots of rest. Take some naps. It's important.
All right. Naps are a good thing.
They really are.
I never would have thought of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. Well, I want to thank you, Terri Rose, for coming on the Brave Dad Now podcast. Is there any website or social media they should follow you at?
Yeah, you can find me as Terri Baker Rose on Facebook, and I do have a website. It's blissifyyourlife.com. And you can also contact me by phone, 916-425-8383. I do also offer a free 30-minute personal consultation. I would love to help you and love to hear from you. And if you have any referrals of somebody, that you'd like me to contact, I definitely would welcome that as well.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, guys. Terri Rose with Blissify Your Life, your love and lifestyle coach. So thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been episode 17, Dating After Divorce. Am I ready? And remember to keep listening to the episodes. Hit that subscribe button and the notifications so you get notified of new episodes. And again, I'm John Meldrum, and you're listening to the Brave Dad Now podcast, where we're seeking to inspire and uplift men and dads around the world to be their best selves. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.